The Grandview Country Club's private dining room sparkled under a massive crystal chandelier, casting elegant shadows across the mahogany table where 23 family members had gathered for Dad's 60th birthday celebration. The room buzzed with conversations about stock portfolios, vacation homes in the Hamptons, and upcoming charity galas where the Henderson family name carried weight. I sat at the far end of the table, deliberately positioned where I could observe everyone without drawing attention. My simple black dress from a department store stood out starkly against the sea of designer gowns and custom suits surrounding me. To my family, I was the odd one out, the daughter who'd mysteriously dropped out of Stanford Business School 5 years ago to pursue what they called playing with computers. What they didn't know was that during those 5 years of family disappointment, I'd built something they couldn't even comprehend. "Emma, darling," my Aunt Patricia's voice cut through the dinner chatter, loud enough for half the table to hear. "Are you still doing that little computer hobby of yours? When are you planning to get a real career like your siblings?" Laughter rippled across the table. My brother Marcus, golden boy investment banker at Goldman Sachs, raised his wine glass with a smirk. "She's probably still living in that tiny studio apartment, coding until 3 a.m. like some kind of hermit. I keep telling my colleagues my sister works in tech." He made air quotes. "Because honestly, I don't think even she knows what she actually does." More laughter. My sister Victoria, fresh from her latest modeling shoot in Milan, flipped her professionally styled blonde hair and examined her manicured nails. "I've offered to introduce her to photographers who could help with her presentation. With the right styling and makeup, she could almost be camera ready. But she insists on this whole natural look thing. She said it like it was a disease." I smiled politely and took another bite of my salmon. This routine had played out at every family gathering for the past 5 years. The mocking, the unsolicited advice, the constant comparisons to my successful siblings. What made it particularly amusing was that their combined net worth wouldn't cover what my company earned in a single afternoon. Uncle Robert, Dad's younger brother and a prominent real estate developer, leaned forward with that patronizing expression I'd grown accustomed to. "Emma, your father and I were discussing your situation last week. I could get you an entry-level position at my firm. Administrative work, answering phones, maybe some basic filing. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work with a steady paycheck." "That's so generous of you, Uncle Robert," my cousin Daniel added, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Emma really needs someone to give her a chance. It's not her fault she's struggled to find her place in the world." The conversation continued around me, but I'd stopped listening. Instead, I was mentally reviewing the notifications on my phone from earlier that afternoon. 3 new Fortune 500 contracts worth $127 million combined. A partnership proposal from a Japanese tech giant. And most importantly, the final paperwork confirming my acquisition of Henderson Properties, the company that owned, among other things, every piece of real estate my family currently called home. Dad stood up, tapping his Rolex against his crystal wine glass. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to the birthday boy. At 60, Robert Henderson still commanded attention. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his custom Italian suit fit like a glove, and his smile radiated the confidence of a man who'd built a successful law firm from nothing. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he began, his voice carrying that authoritative tone that had served him well in courtrooms. 60 years old. Where did the time go?" He chuckled, and the table responded with polite laughter. Looking around this table, I'm overwhelmed with pride at what our family has accomplished. Marcus, my boy, making partner at Goldman Sachs at just 34. Incredible achievement. Marcus beamed as everyone applauded. Victoria, sweetheart, gracing magazine covers around the world and representing our family name with such elegance and beauty. More applause as Victoria gave a practiced smile and wave. And of course our wonderful daughter-in-law Jessica, who just made partner at Morrison & Associates. Another legal mind in the family. Dad raised his glass toward Marcus's wife, who glowed with pride. His eyes briefly met mine and I saw the slight pause. The moment where he considered whether to include me in his list of family accomplishments. The pause stretched just long enough for everyone to notice before he moved on. "We've built something special here," he continued. "A legacy of success, achievement and excellence that spans generations. The Henderson name means something in this city, and it's because of people like you." As he sat down to enthusiastic applause, I couldn't help but appreciate the irony. The Henderson name did indeed mean something in this city, primarily because of the $2.8 billion empire I'd built using it, though none of them knew that yet. Mom stood up next, her Botox-smoothed face gleaming under the chandelier light. At 57, Helen Henderson was still striking, though her beauty had become as artificial as her personality. She wore a new Hermès dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, paired with diamonds that caught the light with every gesture. I also have something to say, she announced, her voice carrying that particular edge it always developed after her third glass of Chardonnay. Robert and I have been having some difficult conversations lately, and we've decided tonight is the appropriate time to address an important family matter. The table's energy shifted. Conversations died mid-sentence, forks paused halfway to mouths, and all eyes focused on Mom with the intensity of spectators watching a car accident unfold. We've been patient for 5 years, she continued, her gaze fixed directly on me. 5 years of watching Emma embarrass this family with her lifestyle choices. My cousin Sarah shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Aunt Helen, maybe this isn't the right venue for. No, Sarah, this absolutely is the right venue, Mom interrupted sharply. Emma has had 5 years to figure out her life, and instead she's gotten worse. Living in that rundown apartment building, driving that ancient Honda that looks like it belongs in a junkyard, wearing clothes from discount stores to family events. She paused for effect, letting her words sink in while scanning the faces around the table for support. She found it in abundance: nods of agreement, murmurs of sympathy, and a few poorly concealed smiles of satisfaction. Do you have any idea what the neighbors say about us? She continued, her voice rising. The Hendersons have a daughter who can't even afford to dress appropriately for family dinners. The Hendersons' youngest can't hold down a real job. It's humiliating. Dad nodded along enthusiastically. We've tried everything. We offered to pay for her to finish business school. Stanford, for God's sake, one of the best programs in the country. We've offered to use our connections to get her proper employment. Hell, I even offered to bring her into my law firm as a paralegal, just to get her started. But she keeps refusing, Mom added, shaking her head dramatically. She insists on this computer nonsense that doesn't pay the bills or contribute anything meaningful to society. Victoria leaned forward, clearly emboldened by our parents' support. It's not just embarrassing, it's pathetic. Emma, you're 32 years old. When are you going to accept reality and grow up? When are you going to stop this fantasy that you're going to be some kind of tech genius? Marcus set down his wine glass and fixed me with that condescending stare he'd perfected in business school. I've stopped telling people what my sister actually does for work. When colleagues ask, I say she's between opportunities because I literally cannot explain your day-to-day activities. Do you even have clients? Do you make any money at all? The laughter that followed was cruel and pointed. 22 family members, united in their certainty that I was the failure among them, the cautionary tale they'd probably tell their own children someday. Uncle Robert cleared his throat. Emma, we all love you, but love sometimes means tough choices. You need to hear this. We've enabled you for too long, Aunt Patricia added. Sometimes people need to hit rock bottom before they can climb back up. I set down my fork and looked around the table methodically, making eye contact with each person who'd just participated in my public humiliation. These people who shared my DNA, who'd claimed to love me, who'd just spent 10 minutes systematically destroying me in front of the entire extended family. Emma, Mom's voice cut through the silence like a blade, your father and I have made a decision. We're cutting you off completely. No more family gatherings, no more financial safety net, no more inheritance, no more pretending you belong at this table. The room went dead silent. Even the wait staff, who had been discreetly refilling water glasses, seemed to freeze in place. You're not family anymore, she announced with theatrical finality. Pack your things and leave. I looked at her for a long moment, studying the face that had once read me bedtime stories and kissed my scraped knees. Then I looked at Dad, whose expression showed nothing but approval and satisfaction. Marcus and Victoria were practically glowing with triumph, while the rest of the family stared with a mixture of discomfort and morbid fascination. I quietly stood up and walked toward the door. As my hand touched the handle, I heard Victoria's voice, pitched just loud enough for everyone to hear. Finally. Maybe now we can have normal family dinners without the charity case bringing down the mood. More laughter followed me out of the room. I stepped into the cool evening air and pulled out my phone. The irony was so perfect it was almost poetic. They just disowned me on the same day that TechCrunch had published their feature article about my company being valued at $2.8 billion. The same day Forbes had confirmed my placement on their 30 Under 30 list. The same day that CNN had scheduled an interview about being the youngest female CEO to build a unicorn company. While I waited for my driver, I scrolled through the evening's notifications. Over 300 LinkedIn congratulations. 47 interview requests from major media outlets. A personal message from the CEO of Microsoft congratulating me on the company valuation. And buried among all the celebration, a simple text from my assistant. Henderson Properties acquisition finalized at 4:07 p.m. All family residences now under Horizon Tech Holdings. I had purchased my family's homes while they were busy planning to disown me. My Tesla Model S, not the ancient Honda they thought I drove, pulled up to the curb. As I settled into the leather seat, I opened my property management app and reviewed the Henderson family's real estate portfolio. Dad's penthouse, $3.2 million, purchased by me at 4:07 p.m. Marcus's downtown condo, $1.8 million, also mine as of this afternoon. Victoria's trendy loft, $1.1 million ditto. Even Uncle Robert's suburban mansion, $2.4 million acquired through a subsidiary. At exactly 9 p.m. I sent a single message to my property management team. Activate Henderson family eviction protocols. Standard 30-day notice, effective immediately. No exceptions. Then I drove home to my penthouse apartment, not the rundown studio they imagined, but a 4,500 square foot space in the city's most exclusive building, complete with a private elevator, wraparound terrace and panoramic city views. The next morning I was enjoying coffee on my terrace when the calls started. Marcus at 7:23 a.m. Victoria at 7:31 a.m. Mom at 7:45 a.m. Dad at 8:02 a.m. I let them all go to voicemail while I reviewed my company's quarterly reports and prepared for my 10 a.m. interview with TechCrunch. At exactly 10 a.m. the reporter arrived. Sarah Chen was a respected technology journalist who'd been following my company's growth for the past 2 years. As we settled in my home office, a space larger than most people's entire apartments, she pulled out her recording equipment. So, Emma, yesterday's valuation announcement puts Horizon Tech Solutions at $2.8 billion. You're 32 years old, you've built this empire in complete secrecy, and according to our research, even your own family had no idea about your success. Tell me about that journey. 20 minutes into the interview, my phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Emma, there's been some kind of mistake with our property management company. We all got eviction notices this morning. This has to be an error. Can you call me, please? I declined the call and continued explaining to Sarah how I'd revolutionized supply chain logistics for Fortune 500 companies. The TechCrunch article went live at noon with the headline, "The Secret Billionaire. How Emma Henderson Built a $2.8 billion Empire While Her Family Thought She Was Failing." By 12:30 p.m., my mother was in my building's lobby demanding to see me. Security politely informed her that she wasn't on the approved visitor list and would need my permission to come up. At 1 p.m. my father called from his law office. This time I answered. Emma, we need to talk immediately. There's been some kind of massive error with our property management company and I need you to... No error, Dad. Horizon Tech Holdings acquired Henderson Properties yesterday afternoon at 4:07 p.m. Silence stretched between us for nearly 30 seconds. What the hell are you talking about? You don't have that kind of money. You can barely afford rent. I pulled up the TechCrunch article on my laptop and smiled. Actually, according to this morning's news coverage, I have approximately $2.8 billion in company valuation, plus about $400 million in liquid assets. But you're absolutely right about one thing. I'm not family anymore. So this is purely a business decision. Emma, wait, you can't just... The eviction notices are legal and binding. You have 30 days to vacate. I'd recommend starting your apartment search soon. The good places go fast. I hung up. Within 2 hours, the TechCrunch article had been picked up by CNN, CNBC, Forbes, and the Wall Street Journal. My phone was buzzing non-stop with interview requests, partnership proposals, and congratulatory messages from industry leaders I'd only dreamed of meeting. At 3 p.m. Victoria appeared in my lobby. When security called up, I could hear the desperation in her voice. Please, Emma. Just 5 minutes. I need to understand what's happening. I agreed to meet her downstairs, curious to see how the golden child would handle reality. She looked different. Smaller somehow, stripped of the family audience that usually amplified her confidence. Her designer outfit seemed less impressive without the backdrop of our parents' approval. Emma, I don't understand any of this. This company, this money, how did you? I built Horizon Tech Solutions starting 5 years ago, the day I dropped out of Stanford. We specialize in AI-driven logistics optimization for Fortune 500 companies. We currently process over $47 billion in annual transactions and employ 3,400 people across 12 countries. Victoria stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. But the clothes, the car, the apartment we thought you lived in. I dress simply because I work 16-hour days and don't have time for fashion. I drove a Honda to family events because I learned early that visible success makes you a target for resentment and manipulation. And that apartment building you think I live in? I bought it 2 years ago for $23 million. I live in the penthouse. Why didn't you tell us? Why did you let us think? Would it have mattered, Victoria? Would any of you have treated me differently if you'd known I had money? Or would you have just found new ways to diminish me? She couldn't answer that question, and we both knew why. The eviction stands, I said firmly. But I'll provide references for apartments in your actual price range. That evening I watched the news coverage from my home theater. Anderson Cooper was discussing the mystery tech billionaire, who had built an empire in complete secrecy. Horizon Tech Solutions, founded by Emma Henderson when she was just 27, has revolutionized how major corporations manage their supply chains, Cooper explained to his audience. What makes this story particularly fascinating is that Henderson built this $2.8 billion empire while her own family believed she was struggling to make ends meet. The camera cut to footage of my parents' building, where news crews had gathered after word spread about the eviction notices and my connection to the Henderson Properties acquisition. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Emma, I saw the news. We were wrong about everything. I'm sorry. Can we please talk? I want to make this right. I set the phone aside and poured myself a glass of wine from my private collection. Tomorrow morning I had breakfast meetings with the CEOs of 3 Fortune 100 companies. Next week I was flying to Tokyo to finalize a partnership worth $600 million. The week after that I'd be speaking at the World Economic Forum about the future of artificial intelligence. But tonight I was going to enjoy the silence of my penthouse, the glittering city lights spread out below me, and the profound satisfaction of finally showing my family exactly who they'd chosen to disown. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's success so undeniable and overwhelming that it speaks for itself. The 30-day eviction notice was just the beginning. By the end of the month, they'd learn exactly what it meant to have no family to fall back on. And I'd finally be free to build the life I'd earned, surrounded by people who valued me for who I actually was, not who they thought I should be.